Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Wednesday, May 20th, 2015. Today, desperate to shut down the narrative about Seymour Hersh's investigation into the lies surrounding the Osama bin Laden raid, the government has released a trove of documents. That's the word that all the media is echoing, a trove of documents. Some say it's 100, some say it's 200, some say it's 400. It just gets bigger all the time. These documents purport to be Osama bin Laden's library, his reading room. This is the way CNN reports it. They say secret documents provide a portrait of Osama bin Laden. And of course, this is from Peter Bergen, CNN's national security analyst. This is someone who's had a lot of back and forth with Seymour Hersh about the Osama bin Laden raid. And of course, the obvious lies, what might really be lying behind it. But he reports with a straight face exactly what the CIA tells him, that now they've put out these documents after 4 years. It has, no relationship to the investigation of Seymour Hersh. It just happens to come out about a week after all this stuff broke. And this is being released by none other than James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence. You remember him? He was the guy that told Ron Wyden there's no mass collection of data, and he couldn't even look at what Wyden he was looking down as he was saying that. We also see the Wall Street Journal just repeats this without mentioning Seymour Hersh. They say bin Laden had claimed U.S. was losing the war with al-Qaeda. That's their narrative. Then we see that NPR also parrots it, says U.S. releases documents seized from Osama bin Laden's compound. Yes, it's his entire library. A couple of news media outlets, very few of them, but just a couple, USA Today is one, The Guardian is the other, actually mentioned this might be a reaction to Seymour Hersh's report. Remember that Seymour Hersh's investigative journalism resulted in the Church Committee hearings that looked at the CIA with a fine-tooth comb. Looked like something was really going to happen with that, but after they got rid of the CIA director, they replaced him with George H.W. Bush, and it was business as usual, perhaps even worse than before. Also, his investigation at the same time that started the Church Committee hearing. In the Senate, there was a Pike Committee hearing. In the House, that committee hearing actually exposed the existence of the NSA and the first exposure of their massive collection of people's phone information without getting a search warrant. All those resulted in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act that was supposed to stop this kind of activity. Instead, what the intelligence community did was to use the FISA Act and the FISA court to get dragnet surveillance of the entire nation, saying, well, we really did go before a judge. No. As Rand Paul points out, you don't get a search warrant for Mr. and Mrs. Verizon. That's essentially what they've done. This is what USA Today says. They say the press release comes 4 years after the mission that killed Osama bin Laden and allowed commandos to seize letters, books, and other intelligence on the al-Qaeda terror network that he founded. That was something also that Seymour Hersh, according to his sources, said there really wasn't anything taken from there of any significance or volume. They say an interagency review determined that release of the documents and titles to others would not compromise efforts to combat al-Qaeda. The documents were released a week after the article by veteran investigative reporter Seymour Hersh that quoted an anonymous source saying, quote, there were no garbage bags full of computers and storage devices. The guys just stuffed some books and papers they found in his room in their backpacks. But if you go back and you look at this Wall Street Journal article, it has a picture, just so that you know they've got real documents. What they actually show in this article, let's pull that up on the screen. They actually show the printouts that they got of the English translations of supposedly original documents and letters. Those are nothing but emails that came from the CIA that they printed out, took pictures of it, and put it on the Wall Street Journal. How's that for journalism? There's your documentary proof. Well, let's take a look at some of the things that are in that reading list. Alex Jones took a look at that earlier today.
Folks, Osama bin Laden died in 2002 of kidney failure. We broke it down. We predicted he'd be on ice, rolled out later. They've now admitted the official story's not true. Most of it isn't. No, it was a body double. I've talked to the Navy SEALs. I'm on record when this first got announced, when they blew up their helicopter. And I'm just insulted that I wasn't put in bin Laden's fake reading list. This is clearly to demonize books they don't like. Though I did republish and reprint Bloodlines of the Illuminati for Fritz Springmeier, so I'm proud of that. The Best Democracy Money Can Buy by Greg Palast, frequent guest. The Best Enemy Money Can Buy by Anthony Sutton, the congressional investigator, how we funded Hitler and Stalin. Black Box Voting with Bev Harris. It's just a list of our guests. Bloodlines, the Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier. Confessions of an Economic Hitman, John Perkins, regular guest. Conspirators Hierarchy, the Committee of 300 by John Coleman. He's former MI6. Is Coleman still around? I wanted to get him on. Imperial Hubris. We've had that guest on. Project MK Ultra, the CIA's Research Behavioral Modification Program, the actual document. That's from the Church Committee. The New Pearl Harbor, Disturbing Questions About the Bush Administration, 9/11 by David Ray Griffin. Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. He's been a guest before he died. David Ray Griffin's been, this is our guest. Where am I in here? Usually when there's some cop killer, they say they did it for me, and then we learn the person was, coming after me or wanted to kill me or hated me. This is just so, or maybe the body double was reading this in his house arrest, because it was a body double. Half mile or less from the biggest military base in the country.
And again, as Alex pointed out, it looks like a reading list from the INFOWARS bookstore here, things that you can buy here. Question is, why would Osama bin Laden care about the way the Federal Reserve is ripping off Americans? There's just a lot of things there that don't make any sense. But of course, they have restated that this is in no way a reaction to the investigative journalism last week by Seymour Hersh. They did this 1 week after, 4 years after the purported raid. Now, last night, there was a Frontline special on PBS that took a close look at other lies surrounding this and the propaganda surrounding this. Zero Dark 30. They took a close look at this. At the time it came out, many people were amazed at the ham-fisted propaganda of Zero Dark 30, released just a few days before the re-election of Obama. So the timing as well as the content is questionable.
It was bound to be a blockbuster. Oscar-winning director Catherine Bigelow's story of the killing of Osama bin Laden.
Well, I think it's one of those great mysteries of our time. I think it's one of the great stories of our time. And, these stories come along maybe once, twice a millennium. So it's a pretty compelling story.
Behind the scenes, the details of the story were secretly provided to the filmmakers by the Central Intelligence Agency.
The CIA's business is seduction, basically, and to seduce Hollywood producers, they're easy marks compared to some of the people that the CIA has to go after.
According to internal CIA documents, the movie's producers were given exclusive access to the CIA version of history.
And again, as they pointed out in that short clip of the trailer, they got unprecedented access and close working with the CIA. We saw this happen with the interview. When the emails from Sony were leaked, we saw that they were working very closely with the State Department, with the Rand Corporation, to put out a narrative that the leader of North Korea needed to be assassinated, knowing that the movie would eventually find its way with bootleg copies into North Korea, set that up. They use Hollywood, they use the media as propaganda. It's a continuous stream of propaganda coming from them, whether it's ham-fisted or whether it's subtle like it is in the interview. One of the things, however, that they talk about in the Frontline special, they kind of put it as a fight between the Senate and between Dianne Feinstein, with her being the hero, exposing all this. Quite frankly, that really didn't happen. That itself is a head fake, trying to make you think that there is some real oversight of the CIA. No, they get away with murder, and the Senate lets them do it. Of course, the current Senate intelligence head, Richard Burr, the Republican who took her place, is going to be far more in the pocket of the CIA than even Dianne Feinstein. Now, one of the things that you should think about, and is a way that you can get other people to care about the surveillance, care about the secret CIA torture state that we're developing here, the police state that is being put into place here in America. There are some pranksters who are doing just that in New York. They have some anti-NSA pranksters that contacted Wired magazine and told them what they were doing in New York, essentially setting up tape recorders in public and recording people's conversations. The prankster provocateurs describe and document the videos on their website, and it involves planting micro cassette recorders under tables and benches around New York City, retrieving the tapes, and then embedding the resulting audio on their website, wearealwayslistening.com. Because, quite frankly, if you aren't doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to hide, right? We don't need to worry about privacy anymore in America. I think it's a brilliant strategy. And of course, some of the conversations that they put up there already, although they don't identify people, they say that they do say where this was recorded, so people can put things together. We hear people that are talking about financial matters, talking about jobs and relationships, even sexual fetishes. But of course, we shouldn't worry about any of that because, you know, the NSA is vacuuming up everything on everyone and then data mining it to see how they can use if you're somebody that they want to focus on. This is what the people at wearealwayslistening.com said. They said, we've started with New York City as a pilot program, but we hope to roll out the initiative all across the homeland, quote unquote. Citizens don't seem to mind this monitoring, so we're hiding recorders in public places in hopes of gathering information that will help with the war on terror. They say the project's creators have chosen to remain anonymous to avoid legal challenges in New York law because you need to have permission, at least one party, to record somebody else, and they're not getting anybody's permission. They say the NSA, however, employs many third-party contractors, and we consider ourselves to be contractors of this nature, albeit unpaid and unsanctioned. And I guess one of the questions is, if people are worried about the legal issues of this particular project to wake people up, maybe we should be worried about the legal issues of the NSA not getting either party's permission when they record our conversations, when they store our conversations, and again, like I said, when they data analyze our conversations. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about the latest giant bank robbery from the banksters. It looks like they're rigging every single market you can think of, and of course, getting away with it. We'll be right back with the details.
Again, we were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Just when she thought it was safe to dip her toe back into the hearts and minds of America, Benghazi documentation chains her yet again to another lie to the American people, stating that without a shadow of a doubt, she knew and the Pentagon knew Benghazi was planned 10 days in advance. Good luck escaping that bombshell, Hillary. Drunk on power and the promise of secretive backdoor deals dangled in front of you by the global banking syndicate you truly answer to.
What difference at this point does it make?
Her husband's chickens have now come home to roost, and not only will she be defending all of her lies, Hillary Clinton's platform calls for a reformation of her spouse's policies. Bill Clinton signed the 1994 Violent Crime Control Law and Law Enforcement Act. Harsher sentencing laws followed as states were given fiscal incentives to implement them. 1 in 15 African American men are incarcerated, yet African Americans only make up about 13% of the U.S. population. The incarceration rates have skyrocketed by 500% in just 30 years. The $80 billion a year prison industrial complex has thrown people behind bars for 5 to 10 years on first-time drug offenses. In other developed countries, sentences average out to be around 6 months, probation, or no jail time at all. According to California Prison Focus, no other society in human history has imprisoned so many of its own citizens. The prison industrial complex is one of the fastest growing industries in the United States. This multi-million-dollar industry has its own trade exhibitions, conventions, websites, and mail-order internet catalogs. It also has direct advertising campaigns, architecture companies, construction companies, investment houses on Wall Street, plumbing supply companies, food supply companies, armed security and padded cells, and a large variety of colors. According to the Left Business Observer, the federal prison industry produces 100% of all military helmets, ammunition belts, bulletproof vests, ID tags, shirts, pants, tents, bags, and canteens. Prison workers supply 98% of the entire market for equipment assembly services, 93% of paints and paintbrushes, 92% of stove assembly, 46% of body armor, 36% of home appliances, 30% of headphones, microphones, and speakers, and 21% of office furniture, airplane parts, medical supplies, and much more. Prisoners are even raising seeing eye dogs for blind people. Thanks to prison labor, the United States is once again an attractive location for investment and work